Welcome to Hero Villains. Come to the battles of great entities. Do you think Lobo vs. Sentry, the war between Bounty Hunter and Supreme Light? Lobo, the immortal bounty hunter of the DC Universe, is a brutal warrior with unparalleled strength. He is the last of the Czarnian race. After destroying his own planet, Lobo possesses strength equal to Superman, can lift millions of tons, and fights tirelessly. He has an extremely powerful healing factor, can regenerate his entire body from a drop of blood. In addition, he is a master of combat, using heavy weapons and space motorcycles to hunt down targets. Sentry, Robert Reynolds, is one of the most powerful characters in Marvel, possessing the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns. He has superior speed, strength, and healing ability, enough to fight Hulk or Thor. Sentry can manipulate molecules, fly at super light speeds, and is virtually invincible. However, inside him exists the Void, a dark entity with terrible power, capable of destroying entire planets. Before we dive into the analysis, please click the subscribe button and remember to turn on notifications by clicking the bell icon. Thank you very much. In a dramatic encounter, Lobo charged at Sentry like a destructive hurricane. He didn't care about tactics or defense, he had only one goal: to crush his opponent. With the power of Superman, each punch of Lobo could tear apart the planet, but Sentry was not an easy opponent to defeat. With the energy of 1,000,000 exploding suns, he responded with devastating attacks, causing space to shake. Lobo was knocked away, but before he could hit the ground, his body was instantly regenerated. Horrific wounds were nothing to an immortal. His eyes flashed with madness. Lobo roared, then charged like a wild animal. He threw his chains to hook Sentry, pulling him down to deliver the strongest punch possible. Space shattered around the two war gods. Each collision was enough to shake the universe. But Sentry had more than strength. He had intelligence, cold calculation. Sentry delivered the final blow, packing all his strength into a single punch. A blinding flash of light tore through the night, sealing the fate of the immortal and the god of light. The air shook as Lobo roared, accelerating his space hog and slamming into Sentry like a living bullet. Flames tore through the darkness as the Iron Beast's engines roared, carrying the crazed bounty hunter with him. He swung his chain, a weapon that could withstand the pressure of a neutron star, at his opponent. There was a deafening bang as Sentry raised his hand to block, but Lobo's power was not to be underestimated. Each armored link tightened, pinning Sentry like a predator preying on its prey. Sentry was not to be trifled with. With speed rivaling the Flash, he moved in the blink of an eye, transforming into a golden beam that pierced the darkness. A blow as powerful as 1,000,000 suns exploded and slammed into Lobo, sending him flying. The wound tore through the bounty hunter's body, but before he could feel the pain, Lobo's body regenerated almost instantly. Lobo roared, grabbed the Space Hog's cannon, and fired. Energy bullets tore through the air, forcing Sentry onto the defensive. But the most terrifying thing was not his power, but the entity that lay within. The Void awoke, a dark force that was ready to engulf all. Lobo, the notorious bounty hunter, roared in defiance as he charged Sentry with pure ferocity. Every blow he struck had the power to make Superman bleed, something few could do. If the Hulk could grow infinitely stronger when enraged, Lobo began the fight with enough power to tear apart a planet. But Sentry was not the Hulk, and he had never been limited by rage. He was the embodiment of a destructive force, the one who had torn Ares to pieces, the one who had crushed Loki like a leaf in a storm. With incredible speed, the Sentry moved like a streak of golden light, dodging Lobo's deadly attacks before delivering a punch that pierced the atmosphere, warping space with its terrible pressure. Lobo could not die, not because he was too tough, nor because he was lucky. Lobo was simply barred from heaven or hell. No power in the universe could decide his fate. No matter how many times the Sentry destroyed him, every drop of Lobo's blood would recreate perfect copies, multiplying endlessly like an unstoppable army. The Sentry unleashed a devastating shockwave, crushing the space around him, but the copies continued to multiply. Worse, Lobo is not only strong, but he has something that no one else in this fight has: the ability to break the fourth wall. Sentry throws a punch with the destructive power of millions of suns straight at Lobo, creating a massive explosion that tears through space. This blow could have wiped out a god, a cosmic entity, or anyone who dared to confront Sentry. But for Lobo, there was only a pool of blood and ashes, but then from the smallest fragments, from every drop of blood floating in the void, his body regenerated. He even laughed madly as if he were enjoying the fight. Lobo laughed loudly, his eyes filled with mad contempt. The Czarnian bounty hunter was not just immortal. Death to him was simply a meaningless concept. No force in the universe could decide his fate, because even heaven and hell rejected his existence. He had no place to go after death, so he simply could not die. Sentry clenched his fists, his eyes flashing with the bright light of godly power. He had never met a creature like this, one that could not be destroyed, could not be erased, a threat that existed forever. And that made Lobo a more dangerous enemy than any other he had ever faced. Sentry not only possesses cosmic destructive power, but also possesses near infinite regeneration. He can regenerate himself even when disintegrated to the molecular level, which helps him survive being erased by Molecule Man without any damage. Not only that, Sentry's speed is also unimaginable, moving faster than light and can appear instantly at any point in the universe. In the battle against Ultron, Sentry not only defeated him, but also almost completely erased this artificial intelligence, a feat that even the most powerful superheroes would find difficult to perform. When confronting Super Adaptoid, he overwhelmed his enemy even though the opponent had copied the abilities of many Marvel superheroes, including Hulk, Thor, and Iron Man. But what is even more terrifying is the instability in Sentry's mind, the presence of Void, a dark entity that exists inside him, which can plunge the world into darkness if it gets out of control. Even the planet devouring Galactus is wary of the Sentry's power, a being with the energy of 1,000,000 exploding suns, capable of tearing through space itself. Lobo's immortality and infinite regeneration are all but meaningless against the Sentry. He doesn't need to crush or destroy the cosmic bounty hunter in the usual way. Just a thought, a small change in the structure of matter. Lobo, no matter how monstrous and durable, is just a grain of sand in the Sentry's endless storm. Lobo's immortality makes the fight a protracted one. Every time the Sentry lands a devastating blow, Lobo is reborn from the ashes as if death had never touched him. But the longer the fight drags on, the more dangerous it becomes. The Sentry begins to feel his powers changing in a terrifying way. He can no longer maintain absolute control over that familiar feeling, that dark presence, the void. A black aura began to leak from his body, the air becoming stifling. Lobo paused for a moment. He no longer saw the familiar golden figure. Instead, a giant figure with eyes as red as hellfire appeared. It was no longer the Sentry, but something else. A being that even immortals could feel the terror of from the depths of their survival instincts. Lobo, sensing the dangerous change, activated the device on his wrist, instantly summoning a vast army of clones, an armada of countless versions of himself, each with the same strength, brutality, and healing as the original. They spread out across space, roaring into the void like an endless tsunami. But this was no longer the Sentry. The Void, the dark entity that devoured light, had taken complete control. Space twisted as the Void exploded in power. He was no longer throwing punches or beams of energy, he was manipulating reality. Hundreds of Lobo clones vanished upon contact as if they had never existed. Matter warped, energy was consumed, and the battlefield was reduced to absolute black. But before the Void could finish them all off, another force struck. Space shook, a tremor rippled through the universe, signaling the intervention of an even more terrible force. Darkseid, the ruler of Apocalypse, stepped out of the darkness, his eyes blazing with the deadly Omega Beam. Or, perhaps, an even more terrifying entity had taken notice of the battle. What had seemed like a showdown between Sentry and Lobo had become a nightmare that could destroy all of reality. Please subscribe to the channel, it will help us a lot, and moreover, you will see great videos every day. You are the best. Thank you so much. Space began to crack. Cracks lit up the void as if the universe were crying. And then, out of the darkness of Apocalypse, stood Darkseid, his eyes blazing with a deadly Omega Beam. This was no longer a simple battle. A storm of cosmic energy erupted, devouring millions of stars in an instant as Galactus, the devourer of planets, descended upon the battlefield. His presence shook reality, but even he hesitated as he saw the dark entity taking over everything. A giant hand spanning the entire galaxy reached out from the darkness of the living tribunal. Its eternal eyes stared into the void, with no emotion, only absolute judgment. The living tribunal raised its hand, and the universe seemed to stop for a moment. Reality warped, time warped. The living tribunal, at full power, delivered its final judgment. With the help of Galactus and Darkseid, they opened a wormhole in time, a singularity beyond the boundaries of the multiverse. The void roared, struggling, but even he could not escape the alliance of these three entities. In a flash of light, he and Darkseid were drawn into the infinite void, sealed outside of existence where no one could reach. The battle seemed over. But on the battlefield, there were still two survivors, Sentry and Lobo. The two had devastated space so much that even the stars dimmed in the chaos. They continued to charge at each other, their fists swinging with the power to tear apart planets. But the prolonged battle only gave Sentry the advantage. The void stood in the endless night, his power now beyond all conventional concepts. Nothing could contain him anymore. He was no longer Sentry, he was an absolute nightmare, an all-consuming black hole, unstoppable destruction. Lobo gritted his teeth, his eyes wild with defiance, but for the first time in his life, he understood that he was facing something that could not be killed. The void was not only stronger than him beyond all laws of life and death, the void's presence was not simply an individual, but a darkness that ate away at reality, a bottomless abyss that could swallow everything. Every impulse emitted by the void and the cosmic entities that fought could tear apart entire galaxies. Time was warped, space was torn, the multiverse shook under the enormous power. Lobo could heal, but he did not have the limitless power of the Sentry. He began to realize that. Every time he was torn apart, he reformed, but the Sentry did not weaken. If he continued, sooner or later he would be defeated. For the first time in his life, Lobo was faced with two choices: continue to fight and be crushed into infinity, or retreat, find a way to escape this nightmare. And then, in the blink of an eye, he disappeared into nothingness, leaving the Sentry alone in the devastated battlefield where he was the only one standing after all. A fight between Lobo and Sentry would be a brutal and chaotic clash. Sentry is no slouch as he can fly through dead celestials controlled by Knull. Sentry is a being of immense power and is capable of taking down heavyweights like Thor. Thor is a powerful superhero and was defeated by the Sentry. But Lobo is not someone to be taken lightly. He is an immortal bounty hunter, capable of regenerating from a drop of blood and possessing physical strength on par with Superman. Lobo has no apparent limit to his powers, and he possesses a brutality and savagery that few opponents can match. Sentry can punch through reality, manipulate molecules at an incredibly sophisticated level, and possess reflexes that far exceed the speed of light. But Lobo is incredibly durable and nearly impossible to kill. Even if he is torn apart or crushed, he will recover and continue the fight, which is his advantage. Sentry was able to defeat the Avengers, tear Ares in half, break Terrax the Tamer's axe, an axe with cosmic power that can destroy Galactus' ship, and fight the World War Hulk until he was standing still. Lobo also possesses the sharp intellect of a professional hunter. He would not only fight blindly, but also seek to exploit Sentry's weaknesses, including his mental instability. If Lobo could make Sentry lose control, while Lobo possesses incredible physical strength, incredible regeneration, and unmatched brutality, Sentry is a nearly invincible being with power far beyond the cosmic level. In battle, Sentry not only overwhelms Lobo with speed, but can also crush him with just a few punches. No matter how many times Lobo recovers, Sentry can continue to crush him without much effort. Lobo can fight on par with Superman, but Sentry is something else entirely. He can break cosmic energy weapons, tear gods in half, and even control matter at the molecular level. This means that Sentry could completely obliterate Lobo without giving him the chance to regenerate. Sentry is still the absolute winner. I hope you enjoyed this fight. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Follow me if you like. That's it for today's video. Thank you very much.